for 12/12/24. So welcome as we are enjoying the time. I hope everyone is. I hope we're all enjoying this beautiful experience that we've been given. I hope everyone is coming into the knowledge of self that, listen, there is no one coming to help us. Wherever we find ourselves, we have the power to get ourselves out of it. I heard a nice quote today. Listen, whatever you find yourself in today, you could change it the next minute. That's what our Creator, the Source, the All, Father, Mother, God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, that's what we were given when we came here. We were given the power to get ourselves out of any situation. And that's where we are. So thank you, sis. Thank you. I don't know, you probably can't speak, but I welcome your presence always and your support. And yeah, so that's where we are today. Finding self, loving self, love, 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 love. And today we're going to go a little deeper than we normally go. The topic tonight is, what is God? Who is God? You know, that as my in my spirit told me that the name God is just a misnomer. You know, God, you can't define God. You can't give him. There's no name that can define who he really is. And the Christ letters tell us that we really, when we say God, when we say Jehovah, when we say Yahweh, and for me, I said Father, Mother, God, as I understand who God is, source sometimes, all sometimes. We're just calling the source of our being by different names. That's all we're doing. So this division is just a tactic to keep us in low vibration. The different religions and all that is just a way to keep us in low vibration and not tap into our divinity. And tonight, I'm gonna play a video that I saw on TikTok. I couldn't help but did a duet with it. It's the knowledge that we have to have so we can understand who we truly are. My God, if we just understand that we take our divinity from the divine source, and that divine source is not just in us, it's around us, it's everywhere. And we need to tap into it. We need to tap into it, being present. So tonight we're going to talk about things on the quantum level. There's a double slit experiment. I'm going to play a video, and we're going to talk. Just trying to. I don't think we can fully understand who God is, but just to understand, oh, we're beautifully and wonderfully made. All right. And in the chat, A. Scott, welcome. Hello, hello. Thank you all. Please feel free to participate on anything you see on this platform. So let me start with this video.
Essentially, before being observed, particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities. But at the moment of observation, they choose a single state. Essentially, before being observed, particles exist in a...
Okay. I wanted to see who made this video. Angel Light Being. I'll leave this in the description box on YouTube. So if you want to follow this content creator, the original person who posted it is Angel Light Being. I just did a duet with it. And I hope everyone can hear. I'm going to put the volume. Hey, sis, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Hey, Scott, if you're still in the chat, if you could hear, if the volume is okay, give me a thumbs up so we could really understand. I'm going to stop it and start and stop and start because it's going to mention the double slit experiment. And I want to give everybody an idea what that double slit experiment is. Thank you, sis.
State of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities. But at the moment of observation, they choose a single. Particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities.
All right, so it says particles exist in a state where everything coexists. And if you've been following us on reading the Christ letters tell us that we are not solid. We are not solid beings. We're really particles, and we're going to talk about particles and waves. We are not solid. We look solid, but we're not. Our eyes only show us 10% of what something really looks like. It's based on our conditioning. It's based on the frequency, the light coming into our eyes and going to our brain. Remember, our brain is just a receptacle. It's just a receiver. Our brain doesn't create anything. The brain receives things from the mind. Everything is mind, remember. So we are really particles. Everything is particles, everything around us. We are not solid. And that's what Christ saw when in the Bible, when he talked about, he went up, after he was baptized and he went into the wilderness. That's why he saw that when we are not solid, and within us that particle, that some people, I would call it that divine aspect of us, is in those particles. And just by our thoughts and emotions, we can create whatever we want in our lives. That's what Christ tried to teach. He was so happy when he saw that, because he was like, oh my gosh, these people really don't have to live in poverty, all that sickness, all that disease. They have the God particle within them. These people have the God particle within them and living as paupers. He came to tell us that's the truth about existence, the God gene within us. So this is what this is saying.
Being observed, particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities.
Let me start this over so we can.
Essentially, before being observed, particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities. But at the moment of observation, they choose a single state. The double-slit experiment shows us that, at the quantum level, reality is not fixed or determined. Instead, it is a field.
Okay. So he's talking about the double slit experiment. I'm going to play a video about the double slit experiment, and it will explain itself. Okay. And then we'll come back to this video. Let's see if I say it. That was the experiment. Okay. All right. I'm gonna start about.
You would have the same expectation as most people do. This is mostly due to our experiencing the world in classical physics, so we have a tendency to think along those lines. But the reason why you're watching this video is because, weirdly enough, it is not two lines of light corresponding to the slits that we see on the end screen. What we see is a pattern like this, which initially seems to go against logic completely. The quantum world forms the building blocks of our reality, so it's important to understand how things work. The double slit experiment is an experiment that demonstrates how particles can display characteristics of both waves and particles at the same time. This is called the
Yeah, so he's talking about the double slit experiment, and he's saying how particles can be waves and particles at the same time. I know. If you watch Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about that. And Dr. Joe Dispenza said we're supposed to be more wave than particles. Wave than particles. So just follow and watch. When we're particles, we're not creating. We're not creating. Because I'm going to go back to the video before that says as I told you, we're particles, where scientists call it cells, and I know the Christ letters call it particles, and we have this potential particles just going, and unless it's observed, it doesn't do anything. And that's what it's when someone said being present, be in the present moments, because if you're just thinking and only way we create is with our thoughts and emotions. So if you're just thinking and thinking, then you're not creating. And that's what's happening to us because of our programming and our ego. So the goal is for us to be more waves than particle. And this was the experiment performed in 2012. All right. So this is what he's talking about.
The wave-particle duality. This experiment also illustrates the fundamental nature of quantum mechanics, which is all about uncertainty and probability. The first person to conduct this experiment was Thomas Young in 1801. He performed it with light and was able to show that the theory at the time of light being a wave was correct. The double slit experiment is sometimes referred to as Young's experiment or Young's slits in his honor. This experiment is so easy to perform that anyone can make it at home with a laser and a sheet of paper or aluminum. I'll leave a link in the description of step-by-step instructions if you're interested. Here's how the experiment is set up. First, we need a light source that outputs coherent light for best results, so it's best to use a laser. You can also do it with sunlight, but the results are not as well defined due to the different wavelengths that are present in sunlight. Next, we have a plate in the middle with two very narrow slits in it, which we'll be shining the laser on. And lastly, we have a screen at the end that will capture or detect the light so that we can see the resulting pattern. Now let's start with a quick question. What's the pattern that you would expect to see on the screen if we shine the laser through the two slits? Feel free to pause the video here and think about it. If you guessed that you would see two lines of light on the screen that corresponds to the slits themselves, then you would have the same expectation as most people do. This is mostly due to our experiencing the world in classical physics, so we have a tendency to think along those lines. But the reason why you're watching this video is because, weirdly enough, it is not two lines of light corresponding to the slits that we see on the end screen. What we see is a pattern like this, which initially seems to go against logic completely. How can we get this pattern if there are only two slits where light can pass?
Let me go back and show you the mechanism that he said. I think you guys saw it, that he set up for the experiment. Okay, here it is. So this is the light source, and this is the double slit, and this is the pattern that's we're gonna get right here. So this light source is a laser. So his question is, when he points the laser, what we think is gonna happen. Logic would tell us that if he points a light source at these two slits, there should be two slits right here, and the question, the pattern behind it, on the paper behind it, on the screen behind it. That's what our mind would tell us that's gonna happen. But as he showed you earlier, that when this happens, when he points the laser on one of them, it's gonna be particles. It's gonna look like particles. All right, let's continue. 220. This is the apparatus. This is what he's using to show us the experiment. All right. So this is what one showed him, one of the slit shows. Right? Isn't that something we thought it would be a wave, a line? And remember earlier it said light is really a wave. Light is not what we think it is. It's really a wave. Okay.
Like this, which initially seems to go against logic completely. How can we get this pattern if there are only two slits where light can pass through? And what about if we block one of the slits and only let light go through a single one?
Okay.
What do we get then? Feel free to pause here again and think about what.
So what if we block one of those slits we see earlier and let light pass through only one? I still, with my mind, I would think we'll only see one slit on the background, one slit on the paper behind the two slits. So let's see.
What you would expect to see in this case. Well, if you guessed that you would see a single line corresponding to the slit, then you would be mostly correct. We actually see more intensity in the center that corresponds to the slit, but it does fade away a little bit towards the sides. This at least seems to be a lot more in line with what we would expect. So how is it possible to see this pattern when there are two slits available, when there's no such pattern with only one slit?
Right.
Well, this is due to what we call diffraction, and it's what happens when a wave encounters an obstacle, in our case, the walls around the slits. Here's an example with water where the large waves have to go through a narrow entrance and diffract into nice circular waves as they enter. It's worth noting that if the slits are not narrow enough, you won't get nice circular waves. So we'll just assume for the rest of this video that the slits are narrow and that we get circular waves coming out of the slits. In our experiment, the slits will create two circular waves almost as if they were a completely new source. These two circular waves will start to interfere with each other and cause different peaks and troughs in the pattern. When two peaks meet up, they're amplified, and that's called constructive interference. When a peak meets a trough, though, the peak is weakened and can even get cancelled out completely, and that's called destructive interference. This results in a series of alternating strong and weak lines that form this interference pattern on the screen at the end. I'll link to a video from Veritas.
Okay. So what he's saying is the reason why when there was two slits, you get that what should I call it, like a broken line. You get a broken line when there's two slits. And it says that's what happened when we have an interference. And when you cover one of the slit, you get what you thought you would get. You get a line. Because when we asked the question earlier, is if what did we expect to see? We expected to see two lines in the first experiment, but we only saw a broken line. But when you cover one of them, you saw what you expected to see. So
Here that has one of the best demonstrations of this interference shown in a pond. Before we get to how this pattern emerges when using light, let's talk about what happens when we send out single photons at a time instead of a stream of them. If we send only a single photon at a time through the slits, what do you think will happen now? We already know we were getting an interference pattern with a constant stream, so maybe the particles are simply interfering with each other to create the interference pattern. But will you still see the interference pattern on the screen if you don't have multiple photons to interact with each other, or will it go back to only seeing two lines on the screen? Feel free to pause the video here again and think about it.
So what will happen if
Well,
we
the
are
answer
gonna
here is
do
that even if you send only one photon at a time and accumulate the impacts on the screen at the end, over time you'll still see the interference pattern emerge. Now this is crazy, isn't it? How can a single particle create an interference pattern if it has nothing else to interact with? Well, the answer to that is that while a single particle is behaving like a wave, it's actually able to interfere with itself. So how are individual photons able to create the interference pattern in this double slit experiment? Well, let's start by talking about what exactly happens on the journey from the beginning to the end. The first thing that happens is that the photons are shot out towards the slits. Since we haven't asked the photon to be in a specific position yet by performing an observation, it's essentially everywhere at the same time as a wave of probable locations. This wave is not a physical thing, but rather a set of pure probabilities of where the particle could be found if an observation was made. Until we ask the photon a question about where it is or what path it took, it will continue to be a wave and propagate like a wave in a pond. As soon as we ask it any of those two questions, it will immediately decide based on a probability of locations on the wave where it is and what path it took to get there. This is what we call the collapse of the wave function, and it happens for every observation regardless of what the observation is. You can think of an observation as any interaction at all with the real world. Once the wave is collapsed into a particle in a precise location and we get its position, it will return to a wave behavior from this new source position after the observation. Okay, so that was a lot of information, so let's try to get a better feel for how the photons can interfere with themselves with a nice little video. Here we see single particles being shot out and the wave is coherent before hitting the slits. Since there hasn't been any interaction yet with the real world, the photon is still a wave when it reaches the slits. This means that the wave is actually going through both slits at the same time. Once it's through the slits, it then diffracts and interferes with itself, forming peaks and troughs. The final step in this example is the end screen, which is the interaction with the real world that counts as an observation and collapses the wave function. If you repeat this many times, you eventually see the interference pattern re-emerge, showing that the photon was in fact a wave that went through both slits at the same time. So what happens when we add a detector to perform an observation right before the slit so that we know which slit the particle is going through? This variation of the experiment is called a which way experiment. What we're essentially doing here is that we're asking the particle to choose its actual position so that we can measure it. This interaction results in the wave collapsing into a particle, and it can no longer go through both slits at the same time. This means that with simply having added an observation, the interference pattern is destroyed, which shows that the photon did not go through both slits at the same time. Now, if you leave the detector there and quietly go unplug it to try and trick the photons into thinking that they're still being observed, what do you think will happen? Feel free to pause the video here again and think about it.
the same thing will happen.
Well, the answer is that since the interaction between the particle and the real world is removed, the particle can continue to be a wave, go through both slits simultaneously, and interfere with itself. This restores the interference pattern on the end screen, so if you guessed that, you were correct. So essentially, just plugging and unplugging the detector will change the pattern on the end screen between the interference pattern and the two lines corresponding to the two slits. Is your mind blown yet? But wait, there's even more. Physicists are pretty clever, so they've been trying to figure out ways of measuring the particles in different ways without collapsing the wave function. One of these variations of the experiment is by changing the detector's position to be after the slits and before the end screen. This variation of the experiment is called the delayed choice experiment. By putting the detector after the slits, the particle should be behaving like a wave, going through both both slit simultaneously as we've seen before, and have time to interfere with themselves before the detector collapses the wave function. Feel free to pause the video here again and think about whether or not you would see an interference pattern on the end screen in this version of the experiment.
Yes, I think so.
Well, the result here is that the interference pattern is once again destroyed, so if you guessed that, you were right. What this delayed choice experiment shows is that the particles are somehow able to retroactively choose which slit they went through, even if they were still a wave when they actually went through. This means that an observation that collapses the wave function doesn't just turn the wave into a particle at that particular point, it also determines the entire path that was taken for the particle to end up where it is, even if it wasn't yet a particle at the time. I personally find this simply amazing. There's also another variation of this experiment called the quantum eraser that is even more impressive, but that will have to wait to be done in a future video dedicated to it. Now, as if all this wasn't weird enough, we've only been talking about photons up to now, but it doesn't stop there. These experiments were also later performed with electrons and showed that even matter acted in the exact same way. This was repeated with particles of matter with higher and higher masses until 2013, where we did it with.
So remember, we're matter. And it's the same experiment.
Molecules comprised of 810 atoms of over 10,000 atomic mass units. The results showed that even if the matter was a particle at the beginning where it gets emitted, it still acts like a wave until it hits the screen at the end or an observation is made. This means that all the matter we're made of is also behaving as waves until it's necessary for their locations to be determined. Otherwise, they're occupying all the possible points in their wave simultaneously and interfering with themselves and each other. Oddly enough, this is also a technique used in programming to avoid having to compute everything if it's not necessary to do so. So it's as if the universe is trying to save resources by reducing computations until it's absolutely necessary to do so. Before we end, I want to also address one of the most common misconceptions about the collapse of the wave function, which is that consciousness is required to collapse it. This was proven to be false when they stored the information in atoms about which slit the particles went through instead of larger macroscopic devices. The result was that the interference pattern was still destroyed even though there was no consciousness involved in the measurement. You can read more about this in a scientific paper called Quantum Mechanics Needs No Consciousness. I'll leave a link in the description. The double slit experiment is one of the best examples of why we need to use both classical physics and quantum mechanics at the same time. Classical physics is all about smooth, orderly.
Okay, so just to break this down, as we talk about matter, remember we're particles, and we're just talking about that once and this is the experiment. Once light passed through this double slit, you think it should act like this. And if you cover up one of these, it acts like this, but because of the interference with both open, it breaks it down to particle. And are we the interference while we're particle and less wave? So it says in modern physics, the double slit experiment demonstrate that light and matter can exhibit behavior of both classical particles and classical waves. This type of experiment was first performed by Thomas Young in 1801 as a demonstration of the wave behavior of visible light in 1927. Let me see if I see why is it so? I want to find something that more deal with matter. Not just because we are matter and we are particles. So originally we were waves. We were waves. All right, so if you want to know more of that, please, we're light beings too, so we're matter. All right, so we go back to our videos. and share. Let me see, where is it? Go back to our TikTok video. All right. Just want to show you a little about what the double slit experiment is. I know it's hard to believe that we're not solid. We're just particles vibrating at a certain frequency. That's what we are. All right. Okay.
Essentially, before being observed, particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities. But at the moment of observation, they choose a single state. The double-slit experiment shows us that, at the quantum level, reality is not fixed or determined. Instead, it is a field of infinite possibilities that only fully manifests in response to interaction with an observer.
Okay.
Imagine you have an extremely powerful microscope and
Okay. So what this is saying, at the quantum level, there is nothing fixed. So the experiment that we just saw, at the quantum level, at the I'm going to put, say, divine reality, at that part where it's only consciousness, universal consciousness. There's nothing fixed. It's a wave. It's a wave of potential. Wave of potential. And that's why you have trees. That's why you have human beings. That's why you have animals. And after the Big Bang, that's how creation started. It's that universe of potentiality, and that's what we have within us. That's what we have. We still have that universal divine particle that we're made up of. That's where we come from. So when we hear someone says "eat our gods" or whatever, don't think they're just pulling one out or they're trying to be the God, but that we come from that. I'm hearing God gene. We come from that God particle. And that's why I made a video before that time is not linear as they would have us believe. And time is not natural either. Oh, if time was natural, we wouldn't have to look on a clock to tell what time it is. You know, time is not linear. I'm going to start this over again. I know I started over a lot because this is great knowledge.
Particles exist in a state of superposition, where all their possible states coexist. In other words, infinite possibilities.
Infinite possibilities. Infinite possibilities. That's what came when the scientists call it the Big Bang. Father and I got this from the Christ letters that told us that Father Mother consciousness, electricity and magnetism was just in a state of equilibrium, pulling and pushing and each other, and eventually there was a Big Bang. And the Christ letter says it's not even a Big Bang, it's a mere poof happened, and that's how creation started. From all this divineness, from all these divine particles, that's how creation started. That's what we're made up of. Okay.
But at the moment of observation, they choose a single state. The double-slit experiment shows us that, at the quantum level, reality is not fixed or determined. Instead, it is a field of infinite possibilities that only fully manifests in response to interaction with an observer.
Yeah.
Imagine you have an extremely powerful microscope and
yeah. So at the quantum level, and quantum level means the lowest of lowest as we're gonna go. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed. And that's why people tell us be present. Just be in the moment. Be in the moment. Don't worry about today, tomorrow. If you're watching this video, just watch this video. If you're washing the dishes, trying to focus your mind, that's what meditation is all about. So when you're in the moment, that's when creation happened. That realm of potential that lives within you, that's already know what you need. That's already know what your needs are. That's what the Bible tried to tell us, that he knows our needs then before we even ask. That realm of potentiality can only be accessed by we being in the present moment. And someone told us, and it did not me, but I saw 17 seconds. 17 seconds. Can we focus on anything without any thoughts coming in? For 17 seconds, that's how long it takes to create. Just walk around, be in the present moment. Let the universe does its things. It knows you're vibrating at a certain frequency. It knows what you need. 17 seconds. If we understand who we are, this shouldn't be hard. But if we don't understand that the potential of our thoughts and our emotions, this is hard. If you think nothing exists outside yourself, what you see in the mirror is all there is, this is going to be hard. If you're still waiting on someone outside of yourself to help you, this is the power we have inside of us. Why would we wait for someone? Why would you wait wait on someone outside of us to help us? Huh? Trump, whoever. No, no one's coming to help us. They're just keeping us distracted that we don't understand who we are. And that's my criticism of religion, just telling us all the time, oh, someone else is coming to help us and you have to look at someone outside. No, everything you need, the kingdom of God is within. That's what Christ came to tell us. Every possibility, that you could ever want or need lives within you. Anything you want to be, a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want a nice car, you want a nice house, every possibility at the quantum level, which you are made up of, has existed, already exist. They're just waiting for you to vibrate at the right frequency to be manifested in your life. We have to believe that. All right.
Pointed at your hand, you would first see the molecules that form your skin, infinite possibilities that only fully manifests in response to interaction with an observer. Imagine you have an extremely powerful microscope and pointed at your hand. You would first see the molecules that form your skin.
And just to stop this here, because people don't understand that we are particles vibrating at a certain frequency. And you can look at everything, even the bed, nothing is solid, nothing at all. Your car, your house, nothing is solid. And what he's saying is, if we get a microscope, we can look everything can be seen from a microscopic level. Everything, your skin can be seen from a microscopic level. Everything can be. If we were solid, would that be possible? That's a question that people need to ask when they be like, oh no, you're telling me, no, you're not solid. You are not. And a lot of people listening to me now, remember when in school They tell us cells becomes organs, organs become systems, systems become whatever this is, a tree, an animal, or a human being. So at the quantum level, um, quantum level, that's who we are. That's where we're coming from. And that's why we look like what we look. All right.
Going deeper, you would observe atoms with protons and neutrons in the nucleus and electrons orbiting around them.
Oh, let me go back.
Manifests in response to interaction with an observer. Imagine you have an extremely powerful microscope and point it at your hand. You would first see the molecules that form your skin.
Okay, so he's going deeper and deeper. So look at your skin. He said if you use a microscope and point it at your skin and go deeper, you'll first see the molecules that makes up our skin. And then you're going to go deeper and you'll probably see the cells. And you go deeper, you'll probably see the atoms. And then they're even a deeper and a deeper aspect of who we are. All right? So he's just showing you, as we go deeper, I'll stop and explain who we're made up. We can't go anywhere if we don't understand how we're made up and what we're made up of. So you said you get a microscope. When you look in the microscope, as you see on here, you should see those molecules that we're made up of. And then you're going to go deeper and you're going to see your cells with protons and nucleus and atoms. Let me see if anyone has a question as I'm here yapping. Yeah, with protons and your cells, then you go deeper and you see your cells, everything made up of cells. And then you go deeper and deeper. All right, so let me go. And all this, as my topic is to talk about God. And when I get down there, I'll say.
Going deeper, you would observe atoms with protons and neutrons.
So we go deeper and put the microscope on. First, you go deeper, you see the molecules. Then you go deeper, you see cells. You're going to see cells. And inside a cell, we know there's electrons, there's atoms, and there's a nucleus. Okay?
In the nucleus and electrons orbiting around them. Delving even further, you would see quarks, elementary particles even smaller than protons and neutrons. This is where science has reached so far. From here, there are two main interpretations.
All right, so this is the part I didn't know about. So even deeper than the cells with the electrons, with the nucleus and the electrons and protons around it, and you go even deeper, quarks. And he said that's where scientists has reached so far, that quarks is the lowest, but there's a deeper. The scientist has made another discovery, that in addition to the quarks, there's something deeper than that. Oh, did I mess that up? That's the nucleus, okay. Let me tell you, this laptop. Wait. What is this?
Essentially, before being observed, particles that only fully manifests in response to interaction with your hand. you would first see the molecules that form your skin. Going deeper, you would observe atoms with protons and neutrons in the nucleus and electrons orbiting around them. Delving even further, you would see quarks, elementary particles even smaller than protons and neutrons. This is where science has reached so far. From here, there are two main interpretations. One suggests that beneath the level of quarks are superstrings, while the other posits the existence of the Higgs boson, the field that gives mass to everything that exists.
The strings from quarks, went deeper and he saw strings. And I know there's a string theory that believes that we're all connected. There's a somehow we're all connected. So maybe that's the level that they got that from, string theory. We're all created. We all come from the same source. We have an individuality, but at our deepest level, we come from the same source. All right. I'm going to go back a little. It's going to talk about Higgs boson. Okay.
While the other posits the existence of the Higgs boson, the field that gives mass to everything that exists. But what lies beneath that? The quantum vacuum, an infinite field of primordial energy. It is from this that everything that exists emerges. The energy that emerges and comes into contact with the Higgs boson field, which also emerges from the quantum vacuum, gives...
Okay. So I want to replay the Higgs boson. He says that gives mass to everything.
Exists. But what lies beneath that? The quantum vacuum, an infinite field of primordial energy. It is from this that everything that exists emerges, an infinite field of primordial energy. That gives mass to everything that exists. But what lies beneath that? The quantum vacuum, an infinite field of primordial energy.
The quantum vacuum. The quantum vacuum. And I think this is what the Christ letters called Father, Mother, God in equilibrium, electricity and magnetism in equilibrium, masculine and feminine in equilibrium. This is where everything comes from. This is where everything was started. This is what causes the Big Bang and creation started. So this is where everything is started from.
It is from this that everything that exists emerges. The energy that emerges and comes into contact with the Higgs boson field, which also emerges from the quantum vacuum, gives mass to quarks, which form protons, which form atoms, which form molecules.
Okay, just to see how we're created. So the energy from that electricity and magnetism in equilibrium first goes up and form and give mass to the things in the Higgs boson field, Higgs boson field. So everything is coming from that vacuum. Everything is coming from that vacuum. So just imagine from the tiniest of the tiniest, everything, it goes up and give mass to everything in the Higgs boson field. And it's going to go up and up until it comes to us. And that's just to show you that Higgs boson field, that is the field of creation. That's the field, not the Higgs boson field, the vacuum field of energy. That's where everything comes from. Where energy beings, everything is energy. And so if you're here and you hear someone said, "E are gods," or God, this is what God is, how can you differentiate yourself from God? How can you say you're not God, you're not part of the creation? Everything comes from the same source. Everything, all creation come from one source. One source, that field of creation. So when we talk about God, that's what we're talking about. It's in everything, it's everywhere. Someone says it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time because you can't perceive it with your visible eyes. It doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a personality. You can't see it in physical form. You just got to know it's there. That's where your faith comes in. You just have to know that's what God is. God is in all creation. Even in your bed, because the energy that the human exudes to create the bed, the cars, the everything, even inanimate objects. Someone says it's pure consciousness, universal consciousness. So that consciousness is everywhere, 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 and ready to create, waiting for you to tap into it, to create the life that you want, to tap into it, to create the healing that you want. That feel of potential is not left somewhere. It's not left somewhere. You have to, as I'm explaining it, you have to dig deeper to find it. All you got to do, dig deeper within yourself. That's where it is. That's where it is. So you want to understand God, you have to understand this, that it's that divine source where everything comes from. And the names you give it, it doesn't even matter. You can even call it it. It doesn't matter. It's just that creative power which lives within you. Which lives within you, lives outside of you, everywhere you go, where it's there. That's what the Bible can tell us. Nothing can separate me from you. The Bible says nothing can separate, because you can't separate from this God energy. You can't. It's where it's that creative power. Anything want to create, you think it's man creating it. It's created from that God power. Everything is. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures, great and small, the Lord God made them all. Man can't do nothing without that power. Nobody can do nothing without that power. It's always there. Divine intelligence. Experiencing what we're experiencing right now. It just breaks off an aspect of themselves and create this universe. That's all that is. Okay?
Which form cells, which form organs.
Okay. Yeah. So let me start back from the bottom, and then you'll see all that divine intelligence, and that vacuum of energy. From that vacuum, Higgs boson of cells, organs, systems, molecules, and system. All right. Let's see how it works.
Which form the bodies of all organic beings.
Okay.
Being formed by the
Okay.
gives mass to quarks.
Give mass
which form
to quarks,
protons.
which form protons,
atoms.
which form atoms,
molecules. which form cells, which form organs, which form the bodies of all organic beings. Being formed by the quantum vacuum means its essence is within every person. This essence is what is referred to as the divine spark.
That divine
A
spark.
particle of the quantum vacuum,
Particle.
like its fingerprint. Every being that exists has an individual and individualized divine spark emanating from the quantum vacuum. The spark is the quantum vacuum itself. Understanding and recognizing this is what is called enlightenment.
Yeah. Everything comes from that divine particle, that vacuum. Everything comes from it. All creation comes from that. Or it says organic creation comes from that. But everything has a consciousness, so everything with it, that's what we call God. That's what God is. That divine energy, that spark that lives within us. Let me go back and play that one more time.
Quarks, which form protons.
So the quarks form, let me go back down.
Emerges. The energy comes into contact with the Higgs boson field, which also emerges from the quantum vacuum, gives mass to quarks.
Okay, so the quantum vacuum, Higgs boson field, that's the name of a man who discovered this. The Higgs boson field give mass to protons and electrons. See? So that vacuum, that divine particle. Okay?
Which form protons, which form atoms.
Because protons, which form atoms,
which form molecules,
which form molecules,
which form cells,
which form cells. The same divine particle is working through us from atoms, from protons, atoms, molecules, cells. This is what we're made up of. Still that same divine spark within us.
Which form organs.
Which form organs, which form systems.
Which form the bodies of all organic beings.
Yeah.
Being formed by the quantum vacuum means its essence is within every.
Yeah. So this God energy is in everyone. Everything comes from this divine energy, universal energy. Everything comes from it.
Person. This essence is what is referred to as the divine spark.
That's the divine spark.
A particle of the quantum vacuum, like its fingerprint. Every being that exists has an individual and individualized divine spark emanating from the quantum vacuum. The spark is the quantum vacuum itself. Understanding and recognizing this is what is called enlightenment. The enlightened being is one who feels this. Feeling is the key here. Without feeling.
Okay, this is it. Feeling. Feeling. And you'll be like, feeling. And emotions is energy in motion. Feeling. We have to feel it. We have to feel like this is who we are. That we have to feel like and act like this is who we are at the core of who we are. We are made up of that divine spark, that God particle. Let me use that God particle. That's the building block of this body that we're looking at. And if the building block of this body that we're looking at is that divine particle, we have to act like it. We have to know that we know in our minds and our thought. We got to feel it. And the possibilities that comes with that, with knowing that there is no lack in any form. There's no sickness, there's no disease. This is Christ consciousness. This is what Christ tried to tell us when he found out that listen, where these people are made up of particles and act like they're pauper. Right now, I look every time I see an area wherever that's just so much poverty. That's the first thing comes to my mind. Look at these gods living like they're paupers, don't understand who we are. You want a car, you feel yourself in a car. Feel yourself in that car. Feel yourself being wealthy, live in it, vibrate in it, know it. Feel yourself being healed. Feel yourself in that beautiful house. We create a reality. No one does it for us. No one's coming to do that for you. Nobody can do that for you. You have to come into this knowledge. You have to understand it. You create with your emotions. Magnetism. That's what we're made up of. Electricity and magnetism. Masculine and feminine. Father, mother, God. That's all we're made up. Too long this has been hidden. Too long this has been hidden. Too long. And that's what God is. So you're looking for God, God is within you. That God is the God particle is the building block of this visible body, that visible aspect of us that we call body. God is experiencing everything that we are. And that's what he tried to tell us. His hands is always stretched out. We just need to know that God is within us. All the possibilities, everything we could ask or think is within us. It's all knowing, omnipresent, omniscience is within us. When are we going to tap into that? Don't look for anything outside of us, nothing inside of us. We got to master our ego. We got to master our ego. That's what Paul called the flesh. They all knew it. But the interpretation of the Bible didn't, the spirituality and science go together. We try to separate them, but they go together. All right, finish this video.
The divine spark cannot be accepted, and thus the illusion of separation continues.
Yeah.
And recognizing this is what is called enlightenment. The enlightened being is one who feels this. Feeling is the key here. Without feeling, the divine spark cannot be accepted, and thus the illusion of separation continues.
The illusion of separation. The illusion that somehow we're separate from God. Huh? Somehow we're separate from God. Even though we read it in the Bible, our mind can't wrap around that. Listen, God is within us. Our mind can't wrap around that knowledge. Can't.
To love the all, one must feel that the all is the essence of everything that exists.
And that's what when you say you love God, that's what you got to know. You love God because you know everything that exists comes from that all, is that God. Your brother and your sister that you hate have that divine power within them. Just the people that we talk about, we're talking about God, really? Everyone has that divine spark within them. Everyone. You might be like, why is people wicked and whatever? No one's really wicked. Everyone just vibrating at a certain frequency. We have to know, we have to know, we have to know that divine spark lives within us, and stop giving away our power. They use us so much because we don't understand who we are. When you come to the knowledge of who you are, you don't care about politics, you don't care about that stuff. You just spend time working on yourself. That's why I love this, because it makes you work on yourself. You know, all the things that happens to us in our time on earth, it makes us be at peace with it. Oh my gosh. When you come to the knowledge that everything you've been through to get yourself at this point, everyone, even the people you think hate you, the things, the bad things, it's to get you to this place to understand that the God particle lives within you, and that potential of being anything I want to be is possible. And all you got to do, let's say have faith. The world say have faith, but have that feeling and knowing and that emotion. Your faith comes from that even though you don't see it, you just know. And let me tell you, the universe is ready to help you and lead you, and so you can see it for yourself. You can hear me talk, but until you experience it, you won't say, oh my God, now I understand what that lady was talking about. Now I understand what this is who we are. This is who we are. Let's go out there and create good communities. Let us go out there and love one another, because we have that God within us, that God particle within us, and God is love. God is love. Please, this is who we are. Don't talk about your brothers and your sisters. You're just talking about yourself. You're just talking about yourself. That's everyone, every organic being, the water, the ocean, everything. We're made up of the same thing that the sun is made up of, where moon is made up of, the stars is made up of. We are made up of everything. Someone, I was on a live and someone says, oh, why you God make Elon Musk rich, and why your God didn't save people in slavery? That I really didn't think happened. The slavery is the mind, of the mind that is still going on today. If Elon Musk is tapping into his God energy, that's what the difference between Elon Musk and someone else is. Elon Musk understand who he is. They don't go by the 10 commandments, they go by the laws of the universe. That's what counts. They're giving us the 10 commandments and they're obeying the laws of the universe. You have to wake up to this knowledge. Why you think they let us sign everything? Why you think we have to sign everything? Because of karma. We are gods. They can't just do anything to us as they want to. They don't have power over us. They don't. We give them the power. So if you're thinking, oh, there's no God and whatever, while Elon Musk is tapping into that divine particle, or Jeff Bezos, or all of them that knows how to use that God particle to give them whatever they want. And your answer is only, oh, there is no God because you make Africans poor and whatever. This is what our free will come in. You have to find yourself daily. Your soul is saying, wake up, wake up. Your soul is sending you sign. If you find this video, your soul sent you here to hear this. You know how hard working, and this is just my perception, that the soul is working hard to send us clues, to help us move out of this world, be caught up in this world, be caught up in our ego. Our guides, everyone is helping us navigate the sun, but we have totally ignored it. Totally. Anytime you're ready, any moment you can get up, just like the prodigal son, and said, I will arise and go to my father. That's just make it more worldly. Anytime you be like, you wake up and you be like, there's more to life than what my eyes is showing me. This doesn't feel right. That divine creator that creates us wouldn't, this is not God. This is the God that we know. He said, God of love. The God that we know. Why are so many people dying on our street? Why are so many poor people? Why are so much homeless people? Why so much sickness? Why so much sickness and diseases? The God that I know wouldn't cause this. Why is this happening? Because we don't know who we are. We don't understand who we are. Even though you find this channel and many other channels like mine out there and tell you, because you have been programmed, maybe let me go after my age people. You're in your 40s, you're in your 30s, and you've heard a long time that Christ is coming through the sky to help you. And you hear me saying, no, God, everything that you could ask or think is within this temple. Thanks to Santos Bonito, I think the last name Bonito. Even the Egyptians that we talk about so much, at a deeper level, they're talking about this temple. They're talking about this body. We're beautifully and wonderfully made. Nothing outside of us can help us. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, go within. And the moment you do like the prodigal son, I will arise and I'll go to my father. Its hands is always stretched out. We take the Bible literally. This is the deeper meaning of what the Bible tried to tell us. Listen, you've put into situations, the Bible, there's a scripture that's saying, listen, I'm not going to give you more than what you can bear, because he knows what's within you. So if you find yourself in a position today and it looks bleak, you have the power within you to get out of any situations that you have going on, every situations. All right. All right. Okay, so let's finish this video.
On the deepest level, the all and the person are the same thing.
On the deepest level, the all, what we call God, and the person is the same thing. On a deeper level. That's the building block of this visible aspect of us. Okay?
But the person must feel this. When someone feels this, they begin to let the all resolve everything.
You see? And when you feel this, just let the all being present. Being present. When you're being present, everything slows down. You give in everything to your divine self to take care of. And being present means you focus on the moment that you're in. You're not worried about today. You're not worried about tomorrow. Take no thought. Take no thought, as the Bible says, in what you shall eat or drink. Tomorrow will provide for itself. I know it takes, they teach us to out there and hustle and bustle and have a job and this and that. They tell us, take no thought. Just be present. Be in this present moment. That's what's happening right now. Listen, wherever you're doing, try to focus. So when you're being present, you're saying to the divine aspect of ourselves, take care of all my needs. Take care of my healing. Take care of my bills. Take care of everything. Please, if you find this video, prove me wrong. 17 seconds of focusing, of being present, it takes to create what you want. When we think, our thoughts take everything. When we think about tomorrow and next week or whatever, it takes away, it put everything back into our hands because we're worried about tomorrow. And tomorrow Probably not. Everything is now. And you're just thinking on things based on your experience. You know that? Based on what you've been through. You're bringing your past to your future. That's what you're doing. So be present. Be in the present moment and let the divine aspect of us create our reality. Provide for us, make a way for us. Okay?
This is what is meant by abandoning the ego, allowing the spark to act, setting aside personal interests, and letting the spark guide everything.
All right. All right. Yes, so that's our message for today. What is God? And God is that this divine spark that lives within us. That's the building block of this body and all. You said organic creation. You could put all creation. He's not just in us, he's around us, he's everywhere. We have to know that. You could say he, you could say she, you could say it. That's what the word God is. It doesn't have a name. You can't, and one word can't define this divine energy unless you said the all, the source, the creator, the source of all things. That's the name can describe. So God is not limited to one person, no one denomination. Stop talking about other denomination, please. Don't let that divide us. And I go by what the Christ letter says. We're just calling the source of our being. We're just calling that divine source Yahweh, Jehovah, what Allah, God. We're just doing that. It's the same source. It's the same source. So don't let that divide us. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If this video find you, please give us a like so others that can learn from this. Please, this is the time we're living in. This knowledge, everyone has to come into this knowledge. The ego thinking and the worldly thinking is not a thing anymore. If you're not conscious of who you are, that's it. Understanding who you are. That's the thing. That's the thing to be boastful about. No one's into celebrity, all the fancy people are waking up. Please don't. And left behind, it doesn't mean like a rapture is gonna come and you're going left behind. Left behind in this knowledge. Please don't be left behind in not knowing that you are God's. You have that divine spark, the potential to be anything you want to be living within you. All right, everyone. Please be blessed. Father, Mother God, Divine Source, the all, I thank you for everything that we saw and learned tonight. I thank you for everyone who listened and who will be listening at another time. And I thank you for that divine spark that lives within each of us. I pray continually for learning and understanding of self, learn to be present, so we can allow that divine aspect of us to take full control and create the world that for us and create for us instead of us creating based on our past and based on our experiences and based on our ego. I pray for strength for each and every one to tap into that divine aspect of us and feel it, feel our blessing, feel love, feel our healing, feel it in every aspect of our being. Even when whatever physical eyes is showing us, let us feel it in our body, in every aspect, and know that that divine sparks live in us, that can do all things that we've read in the Bible all these years. So we thank you, thank you, thank you. And we honor and we give thanks. Thank you for everyone who joined tonight and will be joining at a later time. That this will be a blessing to each and every one. We thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sis. I know it's hard for you to with the noise, but I thank you for your faithfulness always. Always. All right, sis. Take care. We'll talk.
Okay, have a blessed night.
Have a blessed
Okay.
night.
Yes, yes. Good
Yeah.
night.
Good night.